The very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier podcast.
I had a soccer coach, and he always said, we are going to be the fittest team always out there. Because in the moment, you don't want to be worried about being tired. You want to be focused on the soccer game.
Right.
Which is what's going to translate for me, hopefully, in the CJF, is that I'm not worried about being tired. I can focus on the task at hand.
Granted, he was like, get your specimens made. 3 months before you take your exam, get all your AW specimens made. And it's good to have other people putting that pressure on you as well. Sometimes if it's a single journey, and you've not got mentors that are coaching you, helping you, you kind of rest a little bit.
If you're hearing this, you are currently on the non-subscriber feed. If you would like to hear this episode in its entirety, please subscribe using the link below. If you're a student, apprentice, or just find yourself in a situation where it isn't financially feasible to subscribe, please reach out to me on Facebook or through the website. The good folks at Out West Design and Fabrication are lending their support by helping us to cover your scholarship subscription. You can check out many of their incredible projects on their Facebook page. Out West Design and Fabrication, your choice for Farrier rakes. Now here's a sample of this week's episode. Thank you for listening.
Most people that I know in this industry only want the best for the other people in the industry, which is a pretty cool thing.
Welcome, everyone. So we put it out into the world of Farrier Facebook that we were going to do an Ask Me Anything episode. Some people responded with questions. Lee Olsen responded with an offer to host. And once I took him up on that offer, he ran with it and got many more questions through the Farrier Discussion 101 group. At the very beginning, you'll hear Lee comment that I tend to let the guests on the podcast talk without interrupting or dominating the conversation. Well, I guess when the tables are turned and someone else is asking the questions, I can get quite verbose. Lee drew so much out of me that by the time I hit stop on the record button, we had almost 3 hours of tape. So this episode is going to be split into 2. If you're one of the kind folks who participated by submitting a question but don't have a subscription, please reach out and I'll get you access to the 2 full episodes. Lee made this a lot of fun. I really appreciate that he took the time and effort to do it. Unfortunately, despite the podcast recording platform's promise to the contrary, some Wi-Fi signal issues caused some small parts of Lee's side of the conversation to be muffled a bit, but not enough to keep his radio-friendly voice or his Western charm from shining through. So without further ado, I now bring you part 1 of Ask Brian Anything, hosted by Lee Olsen. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Well, I guess we should start. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this. Maybe I'll get you to introduce yourself with your letters, as we usually do at the beginning of a podcast.
This is Lee Olsen, certified journeyman farrier from Weatherford, Texas. I own Olsen Equine, and it is my pleasure today to be your host for Brian Mullins. Dun, 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 dun.
So when you saw the AMA questions go out, you responded fairly quickly with a suggestion that you host it. What inspired that?
I love your style. You're one of the very few people that you just meet for the first time, and I'm like, I like that guy. And
ditto.
And I like what you're doing, man. And to be completely transparent with you, one of my biggest pet peeves on podcasts is when a host does the majority of the talking, or even half, honestly.
Yeah.
You never do that. You are so good at that. So I feel like I'm a gold digger and this is untapped country. This is exciting. Unearth all sorts of information.
Right. Yeah. Well, so I have had the tables turned on me before where both Chris Gregory and Danny Bennett interviewed me, but with the AMA, because it's always about the guest for me, that's the reason why I don't talk as much, because I want the world to hear the guest's story, not my own. So I'm always nervous to do it when the microphone's turned on me. But even to do this, this has been probably a year of me pondering whether or not I even do it. So when you suggested that you would like to host it, I was like, okay, this is awesome. I'm a little bit more relaxed. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, you bet. Well, hopefully we can get you unrelaxed and super nervous here in a minute. But
Perfect. All right. Roller coaster ride here.
All right. So we got some great questions from Facebook from all of your followers that we're going to dig into at some time. Mike Mihawk has, how to say his last name? Sorry, Mike. He's got a great question. What is it like being so tall and good looking, Brian?
Well, that sounds like a typical Mike question. I don't know. I would have to ask him what it's like being so small, but still so good looking. I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to.
Right on. Well,
I don't know. I imagine lineups and crowded rooms smell a little different to me than they do to him. But other than that, I don't know.
so much hotter up here.
But I am so glad that Mike reached out. That doesn't surprise me.
We got a bunch more, but here's the golden nugget. Okay, you have got to interview some of the greatest people in the world. And I really want to dig into what you've learned from that. But first, let's go after who you are. Tell us your story. Let's go back. What was the family business when you were knee-high to a duck? Where were you? And then let's go forward. Then we'll get to all the good stuff.
Okay. Well, we have covered this before in other interviews, but I can give sort of a quicker version, the Cole's Notes version. So my parents, my dad was a firefighter and my mother, she was the school janitor actually and cleaned houses. So we grew up in the rural countryside just outside of Brampton, Ontario, which is pretty close to Toronto. And when I was 12 years old, I wanted a job. So I biked up and down my road, and every farm I pulled in and offered them my services. And Harold McDonald, old McDonald, he had a standardbred breeding operation, and he is the one who took me on. My first task was moving a load of bricks from one spot to another. And I guess after that, he decided I was worth hiring.
So was that the entrance into horses?
Yes. Yeah.
So how far, what did that look like? You were shoveling, cleaning stuff, I imagine, and then what?
Yep. Yeah. And then we had, when the foals were born, we did the imprint training, leading them, getting them halter broke, that kind of thing. It's funny, looking back on it now, knowing what I know now, we really did not take care of their feet at all. And we used to laugh when poor Mike Patton, he would come and trim all of these ornery mares, and it would smell terrible, but it was because they all had thrush and we never picked their feet out. So we used to say, could you imagine what he smells like when he gets home? And all of this at the time, being a farrier was not on my radar at all. So I would like to meet Mike Patton again one day and just apologize.
Well, maybe he's out there listening to you right now.
Maybe.
Mike, he apologizes. So what's your take on the imprinting? Where do you stand on that?
It seemed to help because we didn't do it before. And then once we started doing it, as they became yearlings, they were easier to handle and manage. But I think in some cases, like we had a foal, he was born and his mother died immediately after giving birth. And Harold and I ended up bottle feeding this thing all hours of the night. And we basically kept it alive until we could get a surrogate mare to take care of him. And he was the worst of the yearlings to deal with because he was so used to human interaction. He just thought we were one of the other yearlings out in the paddock. So he actually became a little bit dangerous. But so I don't know, from my limited experience, it seemed to help, but maybe too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Yeah, no, totally. Pretty much applies to everything, I guess. But
yeah,
where'd we go from there?
I meandered. I didn't know what I wanted to do as a job. I started down the pathway of becoming a sound engineer. I was really intrigued. I've always loved music. So I had applied to college to do sound engineering. Didn't get accepted right away, but I got a job in the field. And after working for about a year doing that, I received an acceptance. and realized that this probably wasn't the path meant for me. I just saw a lot of people who had been in the business for a long time. They were burnt out. They weren't paid very much money. They were usually pretty miserable. It was long hours. It was fun, but at the same time, I just didn't see it as a career. So I tried university for a year, did really well, but once again, couldn't see where it was going to take me. And being somebody who'd always worked with my hands, sitting in a classroom, I thought I was an academic, but it made clear to me that one year that I probably wasn't.
So were you the guy that went to all your classes and tried hard and then didn't like it, or you were just like out?
No, I took it seriously. Most of my money was footing the bill. So, and that was the other difference. Yeah. And yeah, for sure. And I think too, just seeing no income going in, but a lot of it going out as I was going to school and eating and living. And I really struggled with that. And I ended up having to take the job in the sound business again, working weekends just to keep me going until the end of university that year. And then after that.
So when you say, hold on. So when you say you're in the sound business, what does that mean to us farriers out here that have no idea what you're talking about?
Oh, okay. Well, it's not as illustrious as it first sounds. Basically, I worked for a sound and lighting company where we would have either concerts or weddings or bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs. And we were the people who set up the lights, ran the music, set up the PA system for the cover bands. I even got to do a tour with a Ricky Martin, Spice Girls, Backstreet Boys, and there was somebody else, cover band. That was interesting.
Wow.
So I did lights for that. And yeah, unfortunately, it was only a 2-stop tour.
I could see how a young, tall, dark, and handsome, how Mike described you, might have a lot of fun there.
Right. Yeah. No, it was a cool experience. And the thing is you worked long hours, but you got paid by the hour. So it was a way to make a lot of money quickly. But in the end, yeah, you were pretty exhausted at the end of a weekend. Yeah.
I get it. What after that?
So I was working in the landscaping field, tried that for a bit, and then started working for some family friends because it was off season from landscaping and they had a horse trailer sales business. So
nice.
I started as the shipping and receiving boy, and they ended up firing their salesman, and I got put in the role. So I started selling horse trailers, and I eventually sold one to the guy that I apprenticed with. He kept bringing it back in for service and offered me a job. And my girlfriend at the time, she was a farrier as well. So I was holding horses for her on weekends and touring around with her. So I already knew that it was something that I was interested in. And then, yeah, I went for one day to see what it was like with Andy Vergett, who was my mentor. And I went back, gave the trailer company 1 month's notice. And then my boss, our family friend, he got 3 of his friends to all come and convince me why this was the worst decision I could ever make.
You're going to break your back, boy.
Yeah. One said, what happens if you get injured or nobody pays you? And he was a very wealthy man. And I said, I'm pretty sure you didn't get to where you are by not taking a few risks here and there. And that was the end of the conversation. And another one told me it was the loneliest job on the planet. And I often, when I'm at the AFA convention or Focus in England or something like that, I often look around me and think, man, the loneliest job on the planet.
Right? That's all I could think when you first said that. Clearly, you've never been to the summit or convention or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. But his only experience, he had horses and he had a farrier who came in who I guess was a bit of a lone wolf, and he would make sure he was there when they weren't, and he just, did his thing. And
to his point, don't you think that's actually accurate from his perspective? There is a huge issue with farriers that don't surround themselves with other like-minded learning individuals, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And I think everything is what you make of it. But it's been interesting how many people reach out to me because of the podcast or come up to me at an event and say, I felt really isolated. Some of them, they live in an area where they're the only farrier, so there isn't anybody else to be in contact with. But I've had a few. There's one gentleman in particular, he started competing after he heard the podcast. And now I see him at events and he's doing really well competing, and he's part of that group now. So that kind of thing, yeah, that's why I really like this particular platform, because I think we all have this shared experience, and maybe not all of us have access to people to discuss it with or talk about what we're dealing with. But hearing somebody else tell their story and what issues they've had or successes and failures, it makes you feel like, hey, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only person dealing with this.
For sure. We'll get into the podcast later, but real quick, like that had to be a dream of yours to help people, right? And to hear that, it's gotta be amazing.
Yeah. I released the first 4 episodes and I had a couple people reach out, and one of them was talking about his mental health and said that, you've made a huge difference just releasing this. And I mean, how could you stop after that? Right?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's that component of it. I mean, it's priceless. And that's what makes this so fulfilling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to back up. I want to know, when you were in the landscaping business, were you working for someone, or were you had your own little trailer where you were the owner?
I was working for somebody. I worked for 2 different companies. And I actually, when I was at the trailer place, I'm not a great salesman. My boss complained that I was too honest, and he said I needed to learn to stretch the truth a little bit. But anyways, it was one of those jobs where you wake up every morning and you resent the fact that you have to go in.
Indeed.
I really did not enjoy it. The people were great, but the job was not for me. And I actually approached my old boss at the landscaping company, and I was asking him numbers and how feasible it was to start my own landscaping business. And it wasn't something I was passionate about, but I just thought, at least if I'm in control of my own destiny and the boss, maybe this will be a thing. Maybe this will be fulfilling. And when he gave me all the numbers, I don't know, looking back on it now, I think I was asking a potential competitor how feasible it was to start up a business in his neighborhood. So he might have said things to dissuade me. But when I crunched the numbers, I said, how do you earn a living at this? And he said, well, I kind of wonder that sometimes myself. And he doesn't do it anymore, as far as I know. So maybe, anyways, it was a lot of investment and not a lot of return at that time anyway.
I think that seems like a downtime in your life, but I think a big part of figuring out what you want to do is figuring out what you don't want to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I felt like I was rudderless and was not fine. I was trying all kinds of things. I was thinking about a lot of things. And one thing I will say, if anybody ever runs into that situation, is you just have to try something, because you can sit there and ponder it forever. But until you actually get your feet wet doing something, you're just never going to take the next step. When I decided to become a farrier, my boss at the trailer company offered me more money than I'd ever made in my life.
Wow.
And then the gentleman at the sound and lighting company, which I went back to again during my apprenticeship because I couldn't afford, with the 2 days of work I was originally promised at an apprentice's wages, I knew I wasn't going to be able to feed myself. So I went back to work there. He offered me more money than I'd ever been. And he said, really, this is the best you could do. And I said, well, I kind of already bought the tools and I think I'm going to give this a shot. And he was like, you can sell your tools. You should come work for me. He went bankrupt. The trailer sales place shut down. So I think I made the right decision in the end.
Truth a little too much. Speaking of that, I feel like you're selling yourself short on the salesman side. Why don't we show me your old pitch? You're going to sell me a 2010 stock trailer with a little rust on the floor, but not bad.
Oh, yes, there's a bit of rust on this thing. Nothing a little paint wouldn't help. And this rust program that we have access to for a minimal cost every year. But you should also look into an aluminum trailer because we have a new one on the lot. I know it's a lot more money on the outset, but it's going to last you forever. So there's that.
I knew you were sandbagging.
There you go. Yeah.
So we'll either sell you a maintenance package on this crappy trailer, or we'll sell you this overpriced one. It was this, but now it's double. Yeah, I see you.
Well, one of the problems with the trailer industry is once we started selling aluminum trailers, they don't deteriorate very quickly. Like that's a 15, 20-year investment. So you didn't have return business.
Right.
Divorces were our biggest return business. Like when a couple would split up and bring the trailer back because they wanted to downsize.
Oh man, I hope that doesn't work out.
Yeah. No.
Come back when you get a divorce. I mean, good luck. All right. And so we get done selling trailers, refused going back to landscaping. You're apprenticing. What did you mean by that? What'd you do?
I, not knowing anything about shoeing, started working for Andy. I think the first week was 2 days a week. And then by week 2, it was 5. And then it was 5 after that, sometimes 6, until it was probably 3 years that I did that with him. And yeah, he taught me a lot, and he was not a big forger. So he would hot shape his shoes, but he wasn't a hot shoer. He would put them on cold. So I learned a lot about the business, trimming, things like that. But I ended up working for him for 5.5 years as I built my business on the side. So after 3, I started to drop down to 3 days a week. And then...
Did he give you overflow?
Yeah, he did. Yep.
Cool.
And then I started to pick up my own too. And then once my apprenticeship ended, I just had this, I realized I didn't know enough.
What showed you that?
When clients would ask me questions, I felt defensive. And I think I felt defensive because I didn't know. Why did you do that? Or I knew there was a lot more. I dipped my feet in a little bit with competing. And I remember my first competition I went to, Andrew DeVisser, the business guru I always talk to, he was at that competition, and I saw the shape of the shoe that he had made during an eagle eye. And I thought, that is gorgeous. And I have no idea how to make a shoe look like that. And just seeing other people's work, and I just thought, I need to know more. So that's when I reached out to the Heartland and went down for the forging course, the blacksmithing course, for the first time.
So let's stop right there and back up. So how did you get into hand making shoes? If your boss was just hot shaping shoes, like how did we get to that?
So there was a day, Andy had a day off. So I reached out to another local farrier, Doug Buck, and asked if I could just come with him and his team. And I spent the day with him, and he was running a little contest in a couple weeks. And he said, if you sign up, you don't have to pay. I just want you to sign up, and I'll give you some forging lessons. So that is how that started. And thanks to Doug, I went to the first competition, and I went to a few others after that. And as I'm sure anybody who's competed knows, it shows you pretty quickly how little you know.
Right? Yeah, for sure. But how cool is that for you to be bold enough to do that, and for Buck to just do that? Gosh, isn't it cool how many good people in our industry there is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, all of my successes in this job have been due to other people helping me out.
No,
and,
absolutely.
Just raising me up. And I see it with so many others that they've helped along too. So, no, it's pretty cool. I really need industry to be a part of for that reason.
That's awesome. Speaking of that, we'll submit a question right now.
If you would like to hear this episode in its entirety, please subscribe using the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening.